never meant to be seen by the public, could shake the foundations of the biggest narrative in the K-pop industry, pry open a locked secret long guarded by a giant agency, and finally force a top actor to speak, even though every word he utters could permanently change how we see Jungkook and Taehyung. That question exploded not from a concert stage, not from a carefully staged press conference, but from whispers spreading rapidly across timelines, from blurry image fragments said to come from CCTV footage, from quiet images of two figures allegedly living together in one place without the other BTS members. In the middle of this increasingly wild speculation, one name suddenly surfaced, shocking many and igniting uncontrollable curiosity: Park Seo Jun. Why Park Seo Jun? Why now? And what does he actually know that has made the public wonder whether HYBE has been hiding something far bigger than schedules and concepts? This narrative did not originate from an official statement. It grew from gaps, from pauses, from silence that felt far too long. In the tightly controlled world of K-pop, where every move is monitored and every narrative is crafted with academic precision, the presence of CCTV footage, if it truly exists, became a disturbing anomaly. Such footage is not merely visual evidence. It is a symbol of a system leak, a hint that there is a private space that has long escaped regulation, a space that may hold a very different story about the dynamic between Jungkook and Taehyung. Park Seo Jun, an actor known for his refined reputation and extensive connections within the Korean entertainment industry, has long been recognized as being close to Taehyung's stage name. That closeness itself is no secret. What stunned the public was the claim that Park Seo Jun had finally spoken. The word finally carries weight, as if suggesting a long period during which he chose silence, weighing every possibility, perhaps aware that even a single sentence could trigger a storm. When a figure outside BTS but within their closest orbit begins to speak, the public inevitably asks, is this coincidence, or a signal that a truth has grown too large to be contained? At the center of the speculation lies the story that Jungkook and Taehyung were allegedly living together in one place, alone, without the other members. Not merely staying together, but only the two of them, a phrase that invites endless interpretation. Why just them? Where were the other members? Was this part of a secret project, a recovery phase, or something far more personal? In an industry accustomed to selling togetherness as identity, such separation feels both strange and dangerously alluring. Clues began to surface. Overlapping schedules, deleted posts, shadows caught on camera in hallway corners. Then came the claim about CCTV. The term itself carries a cold, mechanical aura. CCTV does not lie, some say, but it also does not tell stories. It merely records. Humans assign meaning. And that is where the drama truly began, as incomplete visual fragments were interpreted into a full narrative of closeness, secrecy, and the suspicion that HYBE never wanted this to be revealed. HYBE, known for its tight narrative control, rarely leaves questions unanswered. Every comeback, collaboration, and hiatus typically comes with a strategic explanation. So when a story that felt untamed and uncurated surfaced, the public asked, why no firm clarification? Why the silence? In academic crisis communication theory, silence is often read as strategy, but it can also be perceived as an indirect admission that the issue is too complex for a simple response. Park Seo Jun has long been known for his careful speech. He is not someone who throws out sensational statements lightly. Precisely because of that, when rumors spread that he had said something, whether in a limited conversation or behind closed doors, the public sensed this was not cheap gossip. There was moral weight, friendship context, emotional exhaustion, perhaps pushing him to no longer remain silent. But what exactly did he say? That is where the mystery deepened, because what circulated were summaries, fragments, interpretations, not a full transcript. The story of two people living together without the others inevitably sparked questions about internal dynamics. BTS has long been portrayed as a group bound by near-familial ties. Any narrative implying separation instantly triggers fan anxiety. Is this a sign of conflict? Or is it instead a reflection of deep trust between two individuals seeking a quiet space to work, reflect, or simply breathe away from the spotlight? Public emotion shifted rapidly, from worry to defensiveness, from curiosity to protectiveness. In this context, CCTV became a powerful metaphor. It represented the public eye that never stops watching, even when idols attempt to step back. If such footage truly leaked, ethical questions emerged. Who recorded it? Who leaked it? And why? Such a leak is not merely a matter of privacy. It is about power. It suggests that even a system as massive as HYBE has cracks, and those cracks are often exploited by those hungry for sensation. Yet there is another layer rarely discussed. How do Jungkook and Taehyung themselves feel? Behind global fame and carefully curated images, they remain human beings with a need for safe space. Living together, if true, may have been an attempt to create that space. But when that space is penetrated by cameras, rumors, and public interpretation, what remains, Park Seo Jun, within the shadows of this story, appears as a reluctant yet compelled witness. Someone close enough to know, yet wise enough to understand the consequences. When he finally spoke, the public expected naked truth. What often emerges instead is fragmented truth, truth wrapped in empathy, truth adjusted to avoid harming too many parties. Perhaps the greatest shock was not the content of the story itself, but the public reaction. Rather than fading, speculation intensified. Every word from Park Seo Jun was analyzed like a literary text, every pause treated as a clue. Cultural pop scholars even began discussing this phenomenon as a case study of modern fandom, how rumors gain legitimacy through authoritative figures, and how agencies lose narrative control in the digital age. Meanwhile, HYBE remained a looming shadow. The absence of a detailed official statement left space for imagination to run wild. Was silence chosen to protect the artist's privacy? Or because the reality behind the scenes was too complex to package neatly? In public relations practice, choosing not to speak is often the riskiest option. Fan emotions split in multiple directions. Some felt betrayed by the possibility of secrets. Others felt closer, seeing a more human side of their idols. Many grew angry at the media, at rumor spreaders, at the systems that allow CCTV leaks. All these emotions collided, creating a tense atmosphere rarely seen even during major scandals. The question that continues to echo is deceptively simple yet haunting. If this is true, what else don't we know? If two members could live together without public knowledge, how many other private spaces remain hidden? And why do we feel entitled to know them? Here lies the emotional reflection. Perhaps this story is not only about Jungkook, Taehyung, or Park Seo Jun. Perhaps it is about boundaries, about curiosity turning into demand, about how modern fan culture often stretches beyond empathy. As time passes, this story may fade, replaced by new comebacks, new issues, new sensations. But its imprint will remain. It will stand as a case study, a reminder of how a single recording, or even the claim of one, can shake years of carefully constructed narrative. It will be remembered as the moment when the public asked, with a mix of awe and anxiety, whether we are truly ready to accept the truth in whatever form it takes. And amid all of this, the image of two figures allegedly living together continues to haunt the imagination. Are they sitting quietly, aware of the storm outside? Are they laughing at the absurdity of rumors, or simply exhausted by them? We may never know. What is certain is that something has shifted. Silence no longer feels neutral. It is heavy with meaning, suspicion, and emotion. Park Seo Jun, with one small step toward openness, ignited a massive wave. Whether intentional or not, the impact is undeniable. He has shown that in a world constantly connected, secrets are no longer about being kept or revealed, but about when and by whom. And when that first question emerged, whether a single silent recording could shake everything, the answer now feels closer to yes than no, even if the full truth may forever remain one step ahead of us, tempting, challenging, and never fully within reach. The aftermath of that silence did not unfold calmly. Instead, it spread like a slow-burning fire, moving from closed fan communities into mainstream conversations, from whispers into headlines that carefully avoided direct accusations yet framed every sentence with implication. The more HYBE refrained from clarifying, the more the narrative seemed to solidify on its own, as if the absence of denial was being subconsciously translated by the public into confirmation. In this vacuum, imagination became authority and speculation dressed itself as analysis. Observers began to notice how language subtly shifted. No longer was the question framed as whether Jungkook and Taehyung had stayed together, but why it had happened and what it meant. This shift was crucial because it marked the moment rumor crossed into assumed reality. Academic commentators on media culture pointed out how easily audiences move past verification when emotional investment is high. In fandom ecosystems, especially ones as vast as BTS's, emotional logic often overrides factual uncertainty. What feels plausible becomes what feels true. Park Seo-joon's name continued to hover at the center of the storm, not because he gave explosive details, but because he did not fully retreat into silence either. His measured tone, his careful phrasing, and the way he emphasized respect and boundaries were interpreted in conflicting ways. Some saw his words as a shield, protecting Jungkook and Taehyung from invasive narratives. Others believed the same words hinted at something real, something delicate, something that required protection precisely because it existed. The paradox deepened. The more cautious he was, the more meaningful every sentence became. Emotionally, fans were not just reacting to a possible secret, they were reacting to uncertainty. Uncertainty is far more destabilizing than bad news. If HYBE had denied the story outright, some would have been disappointed, others relieved, but the conversation would have narrowed. Instead, the ambiguity widened it. Fans began revisiting old content, old interviews, old glances and interactions, searching for retrospective clues. Moments once seen as playful were reinterpreted as loaded. Silence between words became evidence. Context collapsed into conjecture. What made the situation even more volatile was the suggestion that CCTV footage existed at all. Whether authentic or not, the idea alone triggered fear and anger. For many, it symbolized a violation far beyond fandom curiosity. It raised uncomfortable questions about surveillance, consent, and how much of an idol's private life is truly private. If cameras can follow them even when they step away from the stage, then where does performance end and personhood begin? In this climate, Jungkook and Taehyung themselves became almost mythic figures, less like real individuals and more like projections of collective anxiety and desire. Supporters spoke about wanting their happiness above all else, yet continued to dissect every rumor. Critics warned about crossing lines, yet shared theories late into the night. The contradiction was stark and painful. Everyone claimed concern, but concern expressed through relentless scrutiny quickly becomes pressure. Industry insiders quietly acknowledged that situations like this are the hardest to manage. Not because of legal risk, but because of emotional fallout. Once fans feel excluded from a truth they believe exists, trust erodes. And when trust erodes, even genuine explanations later can feel insufficient. HYBE, known for long-term brand thinking, appeared to be navigating this carefully, perhaps hoping that time itself would dilute the issue. But time, in the age of constant connectivity, often amplifies rather than erases. AS days turned into weeks. The story evolved again. It was no longer just about two members staying together or a leaked recording. It became a mirror reflecting how modern celebrity culture operates. The public demands authenticity, yet punishes vulnerability. Agencies promise protection, yet rely on mystique. Friends speak carefully, yet are dissected more harshly than enemies. Every role in this ecosystem feeds the cycle, whether intentionally or not. Emotionally, there was a quiet exhaustion settling in. Not the loud outrage of scandal, but the heavy fatigue of prolonged uncertainty. Fans expressed a desire to move on, yet could not stop refreshing feeds. Commentators wrote long essays questioning why this story mattered so much, only to conclude that it mattered because it touched something fundamental: the fear that the images we love are incomplete, and the hope that behind them there is something real. And perhaps that is the most unsettling realization of all. The shock was never solely about Jungkook and Taehyung being alone together. It was about the realization that there are chapters of their lives we will never fully access, no matter how close we feel. The CCTV rumor shattered the illusion that everything important is eventually shared on camera, on stage, or through official channels. It reminded everyone that some truths exist outside of narrative control, beyond fan service, beyond branding. Park Seo Jun, whether he intended to or not, became a symbol of that boundary. His presence in the story marked the edge between what is known and what must remain personal. And the public reaction to him speaking at all revealed just how fragile that boundary has become. In the end, the story did not conclude with a revelation. There was no dramatic confirmation, no decisive denial, no final statement that tied everything neatly together. Instead, it faded into a kind of unresolved awareness. A shared understanding that something had been exposed, not necessarily a secret relationship or a hidden arrangement, but the limits of our access. The silence that followed was different from before. It was no longer empty. It was heavy with everything that had been said, assumed, argued, and felt. And in that silence, one question lingered longer than all the others, quieter but far more uncomfortable. If even this much speculation can erupt from a fragment, from a rumor, from a shadow on a screen, what responsibility do we carry as watchers, as fans, as participants in this story? The longer the discussion stretched on, the more it began to expose something uncomfortable beneath the surface of entertainment culture itself. What initially appeared to be a sensational rumor slowly transformed into a psychological tug-of-war between distance and intimacy. Fans wanted reassurance, not just about Jungkook and Taehyung, but about the emotional contract they believed existed between idols and the public. When that contract felt threatened, even subtly, the response was not rational. It was visceral. In quiet corners of online spaces, some fans began questioning their own reactions. Why did the idea of two adults choosing to stay together in private feel so destabilizing? Why did the absence of official confirmation feel heavier than outright denial? These questions rarely made it into viral posts, but they circulated persistently, suggesting a growing awareness that the issue was no longer about facts alone. It was about control, expectation, and the discomfort of not being invited into every chapter. Meanwhile, Jungkook and Taehyung continued their public schedules with professionalism that only intensified speculation. Their composure was interpreted in contradictory ways. For some, it was proof that nothing was wrong, that rumors had once again overreached. For others, it was evidence of restraint, of pressure, of individuals trained to perform normalcy even when surrounded by noise. Every smile was analyzed for tension, every pause for meaning. Normal human behavior became symbolic, and symbolism became exhausting. The alleged CCTV footage, though never publicly verified, lingered like a ghost. Its power